Hello and thank you for joining OBN Horn of Africa. This is Diplomacy Program and I'm Fantambal, hosting the program. In our today's program, I have special guest with me, French Ambassador to Ethiopia, Remi Marechaux. Ambassador, thank you for your time and thank you for receiving us to your embassy.
Pleasure.
Great. Would you please tell our audience a little bit about yourself, please?
Yes. So, as you said, I'm the ambassador of France to Ethiopia. I'm in Addis for more than 3 years. I'm starting my 4th year. Before this, I was at the headquarters. I was Director General for Africa, but I also served in the region as ambassador to Kenya and to Somalia.
Mr. Ambassador, how do you describe the current diplomatic relations between Ethiopia and France?
This is a very strong relation because they're very old. Ethiopia is our oldest partner on the African continent. We established diplomatic relations 126 years ago, and our relation started as the relation of neighbors, as Djibouti was a French territory at that time. So relations are long-standing, and I would add that the political relations are very good because there is a strong personal relation between our two leaders, Prime Minister Abiy and President Macron.
The diplomatic relations Ethiopia has with France is said to be one of the longest Ethiopia has established with other countries. How are the two countries benefiting from these historic relations?
The diplomatic relations cover different fields. So there's a political aspect. Political aspect means the relation between the leadership of the two countries. So as I just said, there is a strong personal relation between our president and Prime Minister Abiy. Since the beginning of the year, they have already met twice, and they're meeting next week in Berlin. So which allow for regular exchanges, and in addition to this, they speak to each other on a regular basis. We also had different ministerial relations on both sides. Ethiopian minister visiting France and vice versa. My Minister of Foreign Affairs visited Ethiopia in January. So that's for the political relation, which allow to discuss subject of common interest, but also the regional situation, for instance, crisis in Sudan, or more global issues. And I would specifically refer to the multilateral system and the need to reform it. That's why Prime Minister Abiy attended the conference in Paris for a new financial pact last year in June, and he adopted a common position with my president and many other leaders for the reform of the financial multilateral system. So this is one aspect. The other one is economic relation and the political relation between leaders, ministers, facilitate the investment and the ongoing also the foreign trade. And there are also other component which is very important in the bilateral relation, which is the cultural aspect of the relation. And if there is one key element of this bilateral relation, it would be culture, with the involvement of the French government in the protection of the unique Ethiopian heritage, but also cooperation in the field of education.
France has this year marked 125th anniversary of Ethiopia-France diplomatic relations here in the capital, where you stressed that France endeavors to strengthen its economic, political and social relations with Ethiopia. Since you're coming to Ethiopia, how closely are the two countries working on these areas?
As I said, the countries work very closely together because we have a long-standing relation which allow us to build mutual trust and confidence. It is also served by the personal relation between our two leaders. So we're working together with the Ethiopian government to strengthen the relation, the political relation, which are already addressed, but also to promote French investment. And next week we will have in Addis a delegation of 20 French companies scouting for opportunities for investment. We also developed a lot of projects in the field of culture and heritage. So most of the time it's well known that we are engaged in the preservation, protection of the Lalibela churches, but also there's a project regarding the transformation of the National Palace into a museum. There will be the Palace Museum, and the civil work is going very well. It should be soon completed, and the inauguration of this new museum of world class will happen in the first part of 2024. But in addition to this, we are also engaged in other regions of the country, and I was just last week in the Gedeo zone, in the southern region, to support a joint Ethio-French archaeological mission to understand the history of this heritage, which was just recently, in September, classified as World Heritage by UNESCO. So our relations are very diversified because we are also a strong cooperation in the field of education, and we recently developed many projects in the field of agriculture.
Okay, so that means you are working on education and agriculture specifically.
Not specifically. Education is a long tradition in the relation between France and Ethiopia. You might know, or many of your audience knows, the Lycée Gebre Mariam, which is an Ethio-French school created in 1948, also one of the oldest in Addis. We have also partnership with many universities around the country. But what is new in our portfolio is the project in the field of agriculture.
How are you working on economic specifically? Economic and maybe political? Okay.
On the economic field, there are two aspects. I mean, the first one is foreign trade. And I'm here to promote French export to Ethiopia. And we were very pleased to learn that Ethiopian Airlines are just ordered new Airbus plane, which are manufactured in France, but we also support Ethiopian export to France. Another aspect is investment. Over the past years, we had many investment in the field of agribusiness, especially with two malt factories, which have an important effect on the Ethiopian agriculture, because those factories are sourcing all the barley they process in Ethiopia, which means that after completing the construction of the company, they engage with agriculture cooperative, more than 10,000 farmers, to source their barley from Ethiopia and to produce malt. So this is the investment just completed 2 years ago. Now we're working on other major investment in the field of energy. And that's quite important because Ethiopia can be seen as a world example of renewable energy. The energy production in Ethiopia is 98% renewable, so mainly on dams, but now there is an untapped potential in Ethiopia, which is geothermal electricity. And the French investment fund is conducting a very important investment project in the Oromia region, in the area of Tulumoye, to produce energy from steam. And the potential of Ethiopia is huge. So we're talking about 10,000 megawatts. And the first two projects will be twice 150 megawatts. So this is the largest ongoing French project. And we're talking about more than 1.8 billion euro investment.
Wonderful. What about political relations?
So political relations, as I say, are quite easy because they're frequent meeting between our two leaders and frequent exchanges. So we're discussing about the situation in the region. For instance, what can we do together to promote a peaceful solution to the war in neighboring Sudan? So that's just an example. But we have also very good exchanges and common position on the multilateral system, because it is Ethiopian interest and French interest to revive and protect the existing multilateral system. And in order to revive it, it needs to be reformed, because most of the institutions of the multilateral system were created after the Second World War, and the world has changed, and we need to reform this institution. And the most important subject on which we have a strong common position is the reform of the financial multilateral institution. That's the reason why Prime Minister Abiy took part in the conference that was organized in France last June for a new financial pact. And the goal of this pact is to allow all the countries on earth to fight climate change together, fighting poverty. Countries shouldn't have to choose what is my priority, is it poverty or climate change? Countries must be able to fight the two together. And that's why financial institution needs to be reformed, and France and Ethiopia have a common position on this. Prime Minister Abiy and President Macron co-signed an appeal, co-signed an op-ed that was published in a newspaper of many countries on earth.
Just last January, the French delegation came to Ethiopia, and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed also visited France, even meeting with President Emmanuel Macron. How helpful will this exchange be in further cementing the bilateral relations of the two countries, and what results have those visits brought?
So they met, as you said, rightfully, they met twice this year, and as I told you, they're going to meet next week in Berlin. So on the occasion of this meeting, they discuss what they can do together. So one aspect is the contribution of France to the implementation of the cessation of hostility agreement, the Pretoria agreement, and we've been doing a lot for the stabilization of the northern part of the country, but also to discuss the prospect of further French investment in Ethiopia. So what the project I mentioned, the one on the agro-business, they were discussed on the occasion of the state visit of President Macron in 2019 and when they're implemented. And now when they meet, they discuss other prospects of investment. So that's one aspect, but they also discuss, as I said, the regional situation. So how can France, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, a founding member of the EU, work together with Ethiopia, IGAD, and the African Union in solving the crisis in neighboring Sudan?
Ethiopia is working on some development initiatives for the last few years, including the Green Legacy Initiative and food self-sufficiency. What is your reflection on these initiatives, and how is your embassy supporting Ethiopia on these areas?
So there are two aspects in your question. On the Green Legacy, we support the global, the larger Pan-African initiative of the Grand Green Wall. So France has committed 600 million euro to create this Grand Green Wall from Senegal to Ethiopia in order to fight climate change. Here in Ethiopia, we take part in the Green Legacy Initiative, as every year we plant on the campus of the embassy 300 trees. So for the past 2 years we have planted 600 trees. Now regarding agriculture, we have launched this year, together with the European Union, a new program for food security. And so just a few months ago, right before the rainy season, I visited Amhara, I visited Tigray, in order to bring to the farmers some improved seeds so that they can resume their activity and no longer rely on food assistance. So it's very important. The second phase of this project will be the production all around Ethiopia, in all regions of Ethiopia, of seeds to be more easily accessible for the farmers. We have also a project in the southern part of Ethiopia, that's more in the Kambata and Hadia zone, for the adaptation of this mountain agriculture to climate change.
Good. That means you are working on both Ethiopia's developmental projects, that is of Green Legacy Initiative and food self-sufficiency.
Yes, because
you've been saying about providing seeds to the farmers, and you visited many places in Ethiopia.
Yes, that's what I do. I try on a regular basis to be outside of Addis, because Addis is not Ethiopia. And so we conduct project. A new priority, as I just said, is in the field of agriculture, because 95% of the Ethiopians are farmers. So it's very important to address the main challenges that the majority of Ethiopians are confronted with.
Dear viewers, you are watching OBN Horn of Africa Diplomacy Program. Till the end of our program, stay tuned. How do you see the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam Ethiopia is committed to complete, or actually it has been completed very recently? What do you say about it? What's your comment about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam that Ethiopia completed?
So first of all, I just said that Ethiopia is an example in the field of production of energy, because 98% of the electricity produced in Ethiopia is renewable. So in the fight against climate change, it is very important to address the need of Ethiopia for electricity through renewable energy. And as I said, dams are very important for the production of energy, and Ethiopia has a lot of assets because many rivers, but it's also important to diversify, and that's the reason why we are so much involved in the production of energy from steam and geothermal electricity.
Following French President Macron's state visit to Ethiopia in March 2019, the French-Ethiopian General Committee was established. What was the foundational objective of the committee, and how is it performing since its establishment?
So this committee is specialized on economic matters. This committee meets on an annual basis, so once a year, and is gathering the French companies, the investors already settled in Ethiopia, but also the potential investors, together with the relevant Ethiopian authorities from Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Revenue, from the Ethiopian Investment Commission, and we review the prospect of potential investment, but we also review the situation of past investment. So what are the problems that French companies are confronted with? They're confronted with many problems common to other companies, like access to hard currency for the import of the raw material they need. They're confronted with several problems regarding the change of regulation, regarding taxation. So we openly discuss all these matters with the relevant Ethiopian authorities in order to find solution and to create a conducive environment for more French investment in Ethiopia.
So they are working on economic aspect.
Exactly. The joint committee is dedicated to economic questions.
Other than political and economic aspects, Ethiopia and France have long-lived cultural relations. How is your embassy contributing towards further cementing these ties?
We have many projects in different regions of Ethiopia. I mentioned the largest one, which is the preservation and restoration of the churches of Lalibela. We are also financing the transformation of the National Palace into a museum. We do it with the best of the French museum, that's the Château de Versailles Museum, in order to open it to the public in March or April. We also work on the other kind of heritage in Ethiopia, and we have every year 5 different archaeological missions together with the Ethiopian Heritage Authority in order to preserve this unique heritage. We do it not only because we know the value of heritage, because France is also a very old country, and France is the first destination of tourists worldwide. And if tourists come to France with a great economic impact, it's not because we have sand beaches and coconut trees, not because we have wild animals like Kenya or Tanzania. It's because we have heritage. And so heritage has a cultural value, but heritage also has an economic value. And the next phase of this involvement will be to promote the development of tourism around these unique heritage assets which are present in Ethiopia.
What are the main challenges or obstacles that you encounter in fostering stronger diplomatic relations between France and Ethiopia, and what strategies are being employed to overcome them? Specifically, what challenges have you faced so far in strengthening diplomatic relations between Ethiopia and France?
There's no major challenges because, as I said, these relations are very old and long-standing, which allow us to know each other very well and to build a mutual trust relation. So that's very important. The other one is the quality of the personal relation between our two leaders. And this facilitates the development of diplomatic relations. So there is no specific problem I could mention now. Each of our two countries are confronted with their own problem, which have an impact on their capacity to engage internationally. And for instance, the war in the north that was ended by the Pretoria Agreement was some obstacle to the development of new projects. But now we do everything to work for the success of the cessation of hostility agreement.
You have been talking about the cultural ties between Ethiopia and France. To add, can you provide some insights into the cultural diplomacy efforts of France in Ethiopia, such as promoting French arts, language, and exchange programs? What have you planned? What are you working on?
No, there are many projects. You might know that the oldest French cultural center on the African continent is here in Addis. That's the Ethio-French Alliance that was created in 1908. And they organize every year more than 70 exhibitions which are dedicated to promote Ethiopian artists more than French artists to Ethiopia. So they also propose French teaching. Now, just to give you an example, we are organizing for the past 2 weeks the European Film Festival And many of these movies are broadcasted at the Alliance Ethio-Française.
French cultural diplomacy in Ethiopia. That means you are working on French artist language and exchange programs.
It's not only French culture, it's specifically French language in Ethiopia through the Alliance, the Ethio-French Alliance of Addis Ababa, but we have also one in Diaspora. But our cultural center is mostly used for the promotion of Ethiopian artists, to give them an opportunity to present their creation and to be known outside of Addis, outside of Ethiopia.
How do you think France and Ethiopia can collaborate to address shared global challenges such as climate change, humanitarian crisis, and sustainable development?
So the two aspects. The aspect I already mentioned, which is the reform of the multilateral financial institution in order to allow Ethiopia to access concessional resources to fund investment for adaptation and mitigation of climate change. We also have direct projects, and I will be next week in Diaspora visiting a new French project which is specifically dedicated to adaptation to climate change. And this project aims at reloading underground water with rainwater. So that's artificial reloading of underground water, which would allow for this region, the Diaspora, but also the Somali region, the Afar region, to use the rain they have to reload the underground water to be able to tap into these resources during the dry season. So that's an emblematic project of adaptation to climate change.
Let me take these diplomatic relations to the Horn. How do you navigate the balance between promoting French interests and maintaining positive relations with other regional powers in the Horn of Africa?
I don't see any contradiction between the two. I mean, by promoting French investment, we are contributing to the creation of jobs in all the region. So we have many companies settled in Kenya, in Djibouti, in Ethiopia, and anytime we have a successful investment, so we create additional financial resources for the country, the host country, because this company, they pay taxes. We also creating jobs, and the more jobs and resources will be generated, and the more stable will be the region.
In your opinion, what role does the diaspora community play in fostering France-Ethiopia relations, and how do you engage with them?
Ethiopian diaspora in France is small compared to the diaspora in the US or in Nordic countries. And the French community in Ethiopia is not that big. We're talking about 1,000 French citizens. But they have a key role to play. And it's very important for us to make things easier for the diaspora to invest in the country of origin. So it's not specific to Ethiopia, but my government, because what is not often well known by Ethiopian public is that 15% of the French citizens are of African descent. It means that more than 8 million French citizens are of African descent. And most of them would like to re-engage in their country of origin, to invest. So the French government is doing, has launched many initiatives to support their capacity to invest in their country of origin. Through a credit facility, through support of the economic service of the embassy. So we consider that the diaspora has a key role to play in the relation between France and the African continent, even if, as I said, the Ethiopian diaspora in France is not that large.
Lastly, how do you envision the future of diplomatic relations between France and Ethiopia, and what are your priorities in this role as the ambassador of France?
So we have several priorities. So the first one in the very short term is supporting the implementation of the Pretoria Agreement. So that's why I said that we were in the northern part of Ethiopia recently to distribute improved seeds to the farmers so that the population can see in their daily life the dividend of peace. We are also repairing all the electrical network in the northern part of Ethiopia, and we have also engaged in restoration, rehabilitation of 3 hospitals, so one in Amara, one in Afar, and one in Tigray. So that's the very short term. Then we are also developing additional efforts for the success of the economic growth of Ethiopia. We do not see this as aid or assistance. We see this as investment in a common future, because the economic growth of Ethiopia is of French interest. Because the more jobs will be created in Ethiopia, the more revenue will be generated, the more it will benefit to France, because we are a close partner of Ethiopia. This will generate export. This will also generate jobs in France. So that's why we see our...
Great. Would you please tell our audience a little bit about you? Thank you very much. Have you got any final message before we end this session?
My final message is that we have been close partners of Ethiopia for the past 126 years. So this allowed us to develop people-to-people strong relation, mutual knowledge of each other, and I'm confident that this is an incredible asset for developing new relation in all fields, be it economic, culture, political.
France Ambassador to Ethiopia, Remi Marechaux, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dear our esteemed viewers, we have finished the discussion with our Ambassador of France to Ethiopia, Remi Marechaux. Thank you for watching and have a blessed time.